Cross the Morrison Bridge from the east side and you land in the middle of Waterfront Park. Home to festivals and scenic views of the Rose City that draws crowds to downtown. The Burnside leads you to Portland's Saturday Market, famous for unique and funky handmade arts and crafts, food, and people watching. The Steel Bridge, a connection from Old Town and historic buildings to the convention center and new ideas. 12 bridges cross the Willamette, pathways to and from two sides of Portland, both sides struggling with a stellar past, a confusing present, and an uncertain future. The largest issues?
It doesn't feel like a great place anymore.
Crime, homelessness, leadership or lack of leadership.
They don't appear to be doing anything. They don't have any kind of way to implement any idea, big or small. They get resistance from one side or the other, and they simply do nothing, in my opinion.
Stagnating growth, struggling businesses.
Yeah, it's the daily lack of people, I think, is making it really hard for most small businesses especially, to operate down here.
Is there a pathway to future success for the Rose City?
And together as a group of people, we can solve it. It's not about I, it's about we.
Can our bridges connect us back to a prosperous Portland? Or will these bridges become pathways out of town, out of state, for businesses and people alike?
I'm KATU's Debora Knapp. Our community remains at a crossroads. In the next hour, I'm asking questions about the future of the Rose City. Portland, a city in crisis, broken bridges, or new pathways to progress.
In the heart of Portland, the Willamette River runs through a city known for things like coffee shops, bookstores, and naked bike rides. Keep it weird is the adopted motto of the city. Quirky, whimsical, comfortable. However, Portland's free spirit isn't flying as high as it used to. Storefronts boarded up, locked, empty, for lease replacing on sale signs. Regular foot traffic absent during the pandemic as employees and visitors alike worked from home, not coming back. The sheer amount of empty office space is staggering.
The number or the amount of vacant square feet in downtown Portland, there's enough of it that it would fill, the iconic U.S. Bancorp Tower, Big Pink, over 8 times with the amount of vacant square feet that there is downtown.
Jameson Shields works for Collier's real estate firm. He says currently the vacancy rate of downtown office space is 27.3%, and the future looks bleak.
Within the next year, we anticipate that number to continue to climb. If we incorporate shadow space and sublease space, we're expecting that number to approach 40%.
The emptiness, ignited partly by the work-from-home culture, but made worse by the downtown decline. Where businesses have left, something else has moved in.
You walk 3 or 4 blocks pretty much anywhere downtown, and you're going to see a lot of people with foil packets, syringes, and it's not a real comfortable feeling. It doesn't feel real threatening, but it's certainly not what you want to see when you come downtown.
Longtime legacy store Kasab Jewelers is committed to staying downtown, but admits the decreased daily foot traffic is challenging.
Look up in all these windows, and all the offices are empty. And yeah, the sunglass still gets broken into almost daily or weekly.
The crisis spans both sides of the river.
We've been here for just a little over a year.
Local contractor Dustin Michael Miller's Southeast MLK and Hawthorne office is a prime spot for problems.
I've had numerous people using my porch as a restroom. That happens way too often.
But it was the brutal surprise when he got to work one morning that was his breaking point.
Yeah, like coming to the office in the morning and seeing the bullet holes through a place where I sit. So my office is over there, but we're usually having meetings here, and a lot of times I'm just sitting right here. And so the realization of when I did turn the camera around, and I see these bullet holes are right behind my head.
All right, Portland, I'm done with you.
Miller took his frustrations to TikTok.
This is where I work. I work right here.
The video went viral.
Well, look what happened last night. Those are bullet holes. The bullet holes And if I was here, it'd be in the back of my head right now.
Miller, a lifelong Oregonian, is so concerned about the future of Portland that he's thinking about leaving the state he loves so much.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? There's a huge problem. Like, everybody's leaving. So we have businesses that are being shut down, and unfortunately, it's a lot of the mom and pop shops that are local business owners that they can't afford to stay here. There's just not any foot traffic. This used to be a very vibrant city with a lot of people coming in that just loved our city, and now there's no traffic here. Like, there's no, you go downtown, it's a completely different story than it was 5 years ago.
Empty buildings on both sides of the river have become a symbol of a city in decline. Boarded up windows, crumbling walls, and graffiti fostering an environment of crime and insecurity.
There's probably still blood on the sidewalk.
Cheryl Walkerhauser, a popular Portland pastry chef of Pick's Patisserie, knows that firsthand. Usually, she feels safe while running in the Hawthorne district, but that changed this year.
And that's where it happened, 45th and Hawthorne. Just running by a vacant lot, and the next thing I know, there's a dog on my arm, on my leg, I'm on the ground.
She also took to social media, a space she once reserved for pictures of her desserts. This time, she posted photos of her wounds, images so graphic, Instagram kept censoring them.
I just feel like I have to show this. I have to show my arm, because my arm is what's going to get your attention. And my message was, this is not the Portland it used to be if we can't even go out and feel safe on our streets.
She publicly called out the city for allowing once safe spaces to become dangerous.
Is there a hole in the fence over there?
The fence doesn't do anything to anybody. That's what I'm saying. Like, what is good does this fence do? Clearly, people are trespassing. You see how many tags are on this building?
That building is no longer there. Killian Pacific, which owns the property, has since demolished the building since our interview this summer to address neighborhood safety concerns and plans to work with the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association on future projects.
There's a sense of urgency in this group.
Portland's problems are not sitting well with Oregon's Governor Tina Kotek. This summer, she established the Portland Central City Task Force to address our city's biggest issues and economic vitality.
We are here to make progress, build on good things that are happening, and be very clear that at this moment, we can't just talk about things, we have to do things and have very specific steps to make progress.
The main priorities of the task force: crime, homelessness, trash, and tax issues that make it frustrating for business owners to want to operate in the city.
If it were just up to government, we are not going to be successful. We need every Oregonian, every Portlander getting behind, being part of the solution so we can get ahead of this.
How did the city get to a point where the governor had to step in with the goal of trying to save it? There's a long history of conflict between Portland City and county leadership and their failure to work together. When we come back, we sit down with both. The crisis on our city streets has many comparing Portland to other once successful cities that have fallen, places like Detroit. But the Motor City is actually on a rebound. Maybe there's something we can learn to find our own path to success. Recently, a Detroit City Councilwoman visited Portland and shared some of her ideas. Since you've been here for a couple days, what is your impression of Portland so far?
Portland is beautiful. I love Portland, the Rose City. I think it's a really great place to be. I, as a young queer woman, love how liberal and open and accepting the city is. So I'm really happy to be here to learn more about how the city functions and what you're doing to address the issues that you're dealing with here as well.
Despite Portland's problems, Detroit, Michigan Councilwoman Gabriela Santiago Romero sees something here that she wants for her own city.
In Detroit, unfortunately, as we've seen across the country, there have been deaths at the hands of police, and I have a background in social work and community organizing, and I really like the idea of having a non-police response program responding to nonviolent mental health calls.
In 2021, the city established the Portland Street Response, a social service program.
My best case scenario is that we can actually expand this out and take a pretty sizable chunk for police and fire so that they don't have to go out on these low acuity calls.
Instead of sending a police officer out to every crisis call, a social worker is dispatched in a mental health event. It's become a model for how other cities respond in their communities.
Do you plan on implementing the same type of program in Detroit?
Absolutely. I want us to have a non-police response program to nonviolent mental health calls. It has shown success here, and I think, frankly, we need all the resources that we can get.
But she and her delegation learned a lot more about Portland than she expected.
Detroit is not at all. Our downtown does not look like Portland. We do have an unsheltered population, but the amount of tents that you see here, the amount of folks that may be using drugs and fentanyl in Portland is not what you see in the city of Detroit.
In fact, the councilwoman was alarmed by the crisis on our streets. Just around the corner from Southwest Broadway, where our interview took place, Portland's problems are on full display. Open drug use, tents, and mental health crises. She says it's a stark contrast from Detroit.
Yes, it's not like this at all. If anything, my delegation was shocked to see what is going on in the streets in downtown, which I can only assume is happening downtown because it's downtown.
As the city tries to climb out of our slump and move forward, Detroit may offer some encouragement.
I think we might be the ones that might inspire other cities. My hope is that we do, to show folks that we can still rise from the ashes, as we say in Detroit, and really build something beautiful and new.
Whose responsibility is it to really build up the city again?
I would definitely say that it falls in city leadership. I would say that it falls in government officials, but quite frankly, I also truly believe that unless residents are engaged, it's not going to happen.
I asked the councilwoman what advice she would give to our elected officials.
I definitely think that people need to be going into rooms, sitting there for hours, trying to figure out what the resources are, what the lack of resources are. During my time here and learning about how Portland is responding to the mental health crisis, the drug crisis, or the unsheltered situation, I've heard a lot of issues around siloing. So there might be an issue of people not working together.
When I asked Portlanders what's stopping our city from progressing, there's a unified response.
They don't appear to be doing anything. They don't have any kind of way to implement any idea, big or small. They get resistance from one side or the other, and they simply do nothing, in my opinion.
Well, I think strong leadership in terms of city government, I think would be really important. I just see the sort of dragging of feet in terms of actions. And in terms of the placing of priorities, it seems like it's really scattershot.
I just think that the mayor should stop talking and get to work. That's what I think.
I want you to know that I'll be laser focused.
Mayor Ted Wheeler announced recently he would not be running for third term. He says he's focused on the solutions for our city. I asked the mayor if the city can bridge the relationship with the county.
It's no secret that the relationship between the city and county through the years has been a rocky one. Where's your relationship now with county leadership, and how do you see it moving forward?
So county government is too tentative for the magnitude of the challenges we face today. They're very cautious. This is not the time for cautious leadership. This is the time to be a little bit on the audacious side and move with urgency to address our issues. And frankly, when it comes to homelessness, we're moving faster than county government.
Portlanders overwhelmingly voted homelessness as their biggest concern, according to recent results from the city-issued Portland Insight Survey. Mayor Wheeler says the city has created 500 shelter spaces in the past 2 years. We checked. The city currently has 7 Safe Rest villages open, a safe park for RVs, and a temporary alternative shelter totaling more than 500 shelter spaces. Plus, another temporary alternative shelter is planned to open in the coming months. I asked Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson about the criticism surrounding the relationship between the city and the county and the future with a new mayor to be elected in 2024.
Do you think the history of the relationship between the city and county has been so rocky for so long that it has stifled the ability to progress, and maybe now this is a fresh start?
Yeah, so when I came into this office, it was almost like there was a little bit of therapy that needed to happen between the city and the county in terms of where the relationship was at. So I actually spent a lot of time doing that. I think it is unfortunate that we were in such a bad situation because we don't really have time to take baby steps on rebuilding things because the issues that we have in front of us, the things that we need to work on are so urgent and need such major things to happen. So we've kind of had to fast forward that and really, be committed to working with each other and to listening to ideas that we both have. And that's something that I've been committed to. I know I have folks on the board who are committed to doing that work too. But it really is unfortunate because I think that there's a lot of lack of trust from some of the folks who have been on the city for a while in terms of their relationship with the county, their relationship with the joint office, and it is a new day.
After much criticism over the county's slow response to homelessness, in September, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek took back $2.7 million in homeless services from Multnomah County for not spending it fast enough and gave it to 6 other counties. Perhaps that was the nudge needed. A week later, the county voted to direct $62 million of unexpected tax money to go toward homeless shelters, detox centers, outdoor villages, and housing. Then, County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson used her executive authority to speed up the availability of funding for homelessness and behavioral health services.
We should see some changes both in terms of increasing the capacity of our shelters and more effectively getting dollars out and really seeing people move off the streets into more stable and safe places.
But the road to get to this point has been slow, and it prompted Governor Tina Kotek to take matters into her own hands to help the city get ahead.
Governor Kotek recently put together the Portland Central City Task Force. Why did it take the governor of Oregon to step in and address Portland's economic future?
I don't agree with the premise of the question. And just in terms of our economic future, we have created new tax increment finance districts to provide incentive to invest in the downtown core. We have waived development fees totaling millions of dollars for people who want to convert office space into housing. We've expanded our economic opportunity zones and specific tax incentives to keep businesses here in the city of Portland. I was told by employers if the city brought their employees back, they would follow. We've brought our city employees back.
Not everybody, though.
Well, actually, 60% of our city employees worked full-time throughout the pandemic, and then the remaining 40%, they are working half-time unless they are in positions that are specifically able to be done exclusively online. And so, those are mostly technology-type positions, interim positions, that sort of thing. But the vast majority of our employees are working full-time. I would like to see private sector employers have at least half of their employees come to Portland and work throughout the week, half, by January 1st. And that, the city of Portland's gone way beyond that. I'd like to see private employers match us because activation of the streets would make a huge difference.
I posed the same question to County Chair Vega-Peterson.
Why did it take the leader of the state to come into our city and county?
I think the governor is responding to a needs that she was hearing from business community members about really addressing some of those issues. I think this is something that we could have had the mayor led on if that was it, but I think the time was now. I think the governor coming in with new leadership was in a really good position to do that. For me, I want to make sure that the county's pieces of those issues are what's working well and that we have a plan for addressing the issues around having, resources for people experiencing homelessness, that we have a really solid behavioral health plan, that we are making sure that our employees who are working in downtown and serving our communities have a well-functioning government to do that.
We'll be following up with Mayor Wheeler and County Chair Vega-Peterson to make sure they are working together to solve the problems facing the city. It's critical for the city to succeed because Portland is the economic engine for the entire state. With the governor's task force in place, nearly 50 business leaders and elected officials will come up with a plan to put Portland on its best path forward. The first list of recommendations will be presented in December. Walk into Old Town and you'll find a store that claims to have the best smell in Portland, Aurochs Leather Company. fourth-generation family-owned business that moved to Portland in 2012.
My parents really wanted to seek, a better life for all of the family.
Like many businesses downtown, they've fallen victim to broken windows and theft.
Yeah, we have it boarded up right now. We have been broken into. We were broken into in just last year, just right before Thanksgiving. And it was a rough patch for us. We had to remake all of our inventory that was sitting right behind me. So yeah, we got broken into, but since then we were able to recuperate, and hence we still have those boards because we want to make sure that this place stays safe.
It's stories like Aurochs Leather Company that inspired local economist Bill Connerly to write an article for Forbes in 2021. He titled it, "Death of a City, The Portland Story." I asked him if his opinion about Portland has changed since 2021.
The fundamental problems are still here. We've got high housing costs, we've got high crime, and we've got a lot of homelessness. And that has not improved at all from what I wrote about.
He studied how other cities have managed to evolve out of crisis. But does Portland have what it takes to get back on track?
I was optimistic at the end. In that article I laid out a lot of problems, but I said cities often come up with leadership that solves the problem. And New York City has done that through 2 or 3 times. Other cities have, and I was optimistic that leaders would step up in Portland. I'm not seeing any leaders step up. In the political, the nonprofit, the business community, people are unhappy, but I don't see anybody stepping up and saying, I'm going to offer a different vision.
A couple of months after my interview with Connerly, Portland City Council voted to try and encourage businesses to move or stay in the central part of the city. They approved a plan to create tax-free enterprise zones in the central city and northwest industrial areas. The goal? To incentivize employers to stay in the area or get them to consider coming here.
It's essential that we communicate clearly to the country, to the city, that City of Portland's open for business.
The companies that do business inside these E-zones qualify for special breaks, including no property taxes for 5 years.
I think it's important that we support economic development downtown, and this is an important step in that direction.
But are the tax breaks enough for businesses to buy in? Mike Markstaller with Daimler Truck North America says it's been an uphill battle to recruit.
People love us, they want to work for us, and they fly into Portland and they come to our headquarters, and leaving the airport corridor, they see all kinds of illicit activity.
Economist Bill Connerly says traditionally, a vibrant downtown is crucial not only to the city, but also surrounding suburbs to thrive.
You got sports teams, concerts, restaurants. It's walkable. It's wonderful. This is 5 years ago. And it was a magnet for the whole metropolitan area. But now we've got this weird situation where the suburbs are doing well, but central Portland is doing poorly. And I don't know how the suburbs will fare in that if they don't have that central Portland as a draw.
One of those typical bragging points of downtown is the arts. Scott Showalter is currently the executive advisor to the Oregon Symphony after being a longtime president of the arts organization.
I'd argue that the arts is one of the few reasons that people are coming downtown at night, especially these days. And yet, we need the Oregon Symphony to drive foot traffic.
The Oregon Symphony is the oldest orchestra west of the Mississippi. Founded in 1896, it's drawn hundreds of thousands of people across bridges into downtown for more than a century. But they say during this critical time in our city's history, local government is making it harder for them to fill downtown with music and crowds.
The way that the Schnitz, where we're standing right now, and the Oregon Symphony is the biggest tenant, the biggest use of the Schnitz, so we don't own the building, although we're here quite frequently during the year, 5-6 days a week for 42 weeks of the year. They're making it harder to the local government because our rates to use this very space have risen at more than double the rate of inflation in recent years, and the local grants that we get have completely imploded. So whereas we used to have to pay about $200,000 more than the grants we received every year, now we pay about $1.3 million more per year than the grants we received.
A simple example of where they're forced to pay more money, we spent 20 minutes inside the Arlene Schnitzer Theater for this interview. The symphony was charged $459.76 for that time. He says the city needs to value what the symphony provides.
At this time, Portland is being sort of squeezed at both ends by local government, and other cities across the country are doubling down in their support of the arts. So Portland and Oregon need to come around to invest in the venerable institutions that will keep it strong. Detroit, years ago, after the implosion of the automobile market and the Great Recession, elected leaders there partnered with the Detroit Symphony and other arts groups to create a creative class downtown and to drive foot traffic and celebrate the city through the arts. I'm not seeing that here in Portland. We would do well to adopt some of the lessons learned in Detroit.
Most people I talk to agree that Portland will never go back to what it used to be. Attitudes have changed, and neighborhoods are about to change. Coming up, a look at 3 major projects transforming the face and the future of Portland in the next 20 years. What will the future of Portland look like? Over the next decade, several projects are in the works creating our bridge to the future. And one of those pillars of that bridge is right here in Northeast Portland, reinvigorating the historically black Albina district. The east side of the Willamette River is perhaps where the city will see the most change in the next 20 years. But in North and Northeast Portland, in order to move forward, we have to understand the past. 70 years ago, it started with major construction of I-5, then Veterans Memorial Coliseum, and in the 70s, Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center. In the name of Portland Progress back then, the historically black, thriving community of Albina was decimated. A bridge that broke a community. Now private entities are stepping up to rebuild.
Well, I think most of us see the future not like we saw the past. There's a lot of folks like, we need to get back to what it was. Well, Black Portland is never going to go back to the way it was. We're never going to have the number of black businesses. We're not going to have the black home ownership, none of those things that we had in the past. But it can be better than what it is now.
Tony Hobson is the director of Self Enhancement, Inc., a nonprofit resource for youth and families servicing mostly the BIPOC community of Portland. He sees the potential future of change in the Albina district.
So the hope is that we provide opportunities for black business to grow and flourish, and that we do provide opportunities for many of the folks that have been pushed out of the Albina area, the opportunity to come back. But what that looks like, it'll be probably something that is far more integrated than it is right now.
This year, the Albina district just received a huge multi-million-dollar shot in the arm from one of Oregon's most well-known philanthropists. Nike co-founder Phil Knight and his wife Penny committed $400 million to the 1803 Fund, an organization that describes itself as a way to rebuild the economic prosperity and community spaces the Albina district lost. Hobson, who's on the 1803 board, says the Knight donation proves quite significant.
Well, some of us think that, in fact, it's the largest private gift ever given to a black community in the history of our nation. So again, to have someone like Phil invest in the future of black Portland is unique.
The 1803 project is still developing its plan. There are, however, already several projects in the works with the goal of creating a renewed Albina. The most notable underway right now is the Albina Vision Project.
So we're actually standing in front of what will be the site for our inaugural housing development. It's a 94-unit, family-oriented housing development.
This complex is the center of the Albina Vision Community Investment Plan, called Albina One. It's more than just a housing plan. It's about 94 acres of redevelopment across Lower Albina.
This place that used to be home to 4 out of 5 black families in the city of Portland, and was ultimately destroyed by the construction of I-5, by the construction of the Veterans Memorial Coliseum, and the general forces of urban renewal that have pushed so many black families and black folks out of their homes across the country.
A multi-decade commitment that will eventually have 2,000 housing units and hundreds of thousands of feet of commercial space near the Rose Quarter and Veterans Memorial Coliseum.
This is not something that we will be finished with in the next 5 to 10 years. It's a 25, 30, 40, 50-year vision, right? For as I said, not just 94 units of affordable housing, but 94 acres of restorative redevelopment that will provide a home for Black abundance, Black joy, Black wealth creation here in the heart of Center City, Portland, right on the waterfront, in a place that people were pushed out of, but now will have the opportunity to come back to and redefine as their own.
The plan is to have on-site services, vocational training and mentorship, and community centers for people to connect.
And over the course of 20, 30 years, what you will see is a vibrant, interconnected community that has everything that it needs to sustain itself in a healthy and viable way.
On the west end of the Broadway Bridge is a pulse point of Portland transportation. Light rail, the bus line, streetcar, and Union Station, all leading to the main artery of a major new neighborhood development called the Broadway Corridor Project, an ambitious endeavor described as permanently changing Portland's downtown landscape.
We think of Broadway Corridor as a bridge between Old Town and the Pearl District, so it's really this beautiful combination of the two.
Kimberly Branham is the executive director for Prosper Portland, who co-owns the centerpiece of the project along with the Portland Housing Bureau. Demolition of the former downtown post office is just the start of a whole new neighborhood, which will take over 16 blocks.
We created the master plan for Broadway Corridor, which includes a continuation of the North Park blocks up to about right here. And then that will continue up, and then there will be a connection via the Green Loop up to the bridgehead right behind us. We've got development that then will happen on both sides of the parks, and you'll see pretty soon Johnson and Kearney will connect the Pearl District to Old Town.
The now vacant 34-acre site is an empty canvas ready for big future plans, including affordable housing, high-density employment, and space for signature city attractions. They're all part of the dream. Another pillar in building the bridge to progress for the city.
We do believe that this development, along with development at Albina Vision and within OMSI, are part of creating the kind of city that we want to see.
Here on the Southeast waterfront, an entirely new neighborhood will emerge known as the OMSI District, a place to live, work, and play, paying special tribute to Native American history and the cultural significance of the waterfront.
The OMSI District is a bold new idea to create an innovative new neighborhood for Portland that is rooted in innovation, science learning, arts, and culture, and that is truly an inclusive place where people of all backgrounds and identities feel welcome to come and play and explore here.
OMSI CEO Aaron Graham says this new neighborhood will take up 10 city blocks. A key focal point will be a center for tribal nations with a new waterfront education park developed by tribes. James Allen Parker is the executive director for the Northwest Native Chamber.
So I think there's two levels into which we're engaging in this. One is to continue to push back against cultural and native erasure, exclusion from economic opportunity, being exclusion from being woven into the fabric of the city and the area, and really kind of restoring that presence of commerce and trade and living and loving and laughing that all happened right here on the river over 200 years ago.
Over the next several years, the plan is to turn former industrial sites into a livable, workable neighborhood, not only impacting the Central East Side, but the entire region.
It's envisioned to be a new mixed-use district, and right now our plan includes 1,200 units of new housing. And of course, a portion of that will be affordable, and we're exploring how much more of that it can make affordable. But yes, it will include restaurants and entertainment venues and places for families to gather and learn.
Graham expects it to add a huge shot in the arm in terms of jobs, focusing on investing in Portland's future. She sees building that future with the help of the state, businesses, nonprofits, and the community, all with one unified voice.
I think we're part of it, along with projects like Albina Vision and Broadway Corridor. We have to think about the future and dream of a different future where different groups are involved in community development and where we can make something that is truly inclusive. I think that this can be a big part of what sets the tone for the next iteration of Portland.
Those three big projects are looking at the long game, but Portlanders are concerned about today. What bridge to progress is happening right now? When we come back, one neighborhood is addressing issues head on, and they're getting some big results. If you haven't traveled into downtown Portland recently, you may not realize it, but change is happening. In the months my photographer and I have worked on this project, there's been a noticeable energy shift. Yes, there's still crisis on our streets, businesses haven't returned, but community groups are organizing, not waiting for change to happen, instead making a difference for Portland's future.
Our winner.
One of the premier food festivals in the world for nearly a decade was held right here in the Rose City. Feast Portland. And Mike Thielen was the guy behind it. He's committed to seeing Portland succeed.
Biggest change makers right now are honestly community leaders, people who are convening, people who are bringing groups together to engage with the democratic process, with the business process, with the city.
Thielen may not consider himself a change maker, but he's definitely one of the biggest supporters of those who are, and believes community partnership is what has made Portland succeed in the past.
You know, being angry and just continually perpetuating a negative image of the city you live in is really lazy, and you're not doing anything to change anything, and there's absolutely nothing creative about being angry unless you can capitulate that into something positive. And I think a lot of people are doing that right now, and that's very positive.
One group actively working to make change is the Northwest Community Conservancy. Within a handful of months, it's made a noticeable difference, helping homeless get sheltered and neighbors feel safe.
And our whole goal was to try to improve livability, safety, and the business environment in the Pearl, because what we saw happening was being downgraded by the lack of presence of the police and services to clean the community up and helping the people that were homeless get off the street.
Ken Thrasher is one of 8 board members of the program. It offers direct outreach to people living on the streets, connecting them with critical services.
You really took things into your own hands to advocate for your neighborhood.
We absolutely did. We have not asked government to step in and help us. We work with government. We are trying to partner with government, because some of the barriers we run into are government related. Shelter beds. We get about 50% of the people that LOA works with on the street into a shelter and into services. The other 50%, we might get them in there eventually, but it'll take a little longer because the shelter bed's not available.
The program kicked off in the Pearl. The goal is to influence the business community to want to be there and feel like they can grow and expand their businesses. The way they do that is by providing consistent, highly visible public safety resources through a 24/7 hotline.
Because when crime happens, it happens a lot at night, and break-ins, vandalism, thefts that were occurring. And as a small business owner, your insurance goes up, your deductibles go up, and pretty soon you go out of business because you can't afford it.
And there are results.
We can measure the tent counts. We've gone from over 50 down to 16 in August. We dropped to 16 in the Pearl. And even in the surrounding areas that are outside on the I-405 corridor, if you cross under the viaduct, that's the Northwest District. But we can't just move people there, because then the same issues still happen. So what we have to do is keep working both sides of the equation.
And ending the need for camp sweeps, pushing problems to other blocks. Here's how it works. First, a business or homeowner becomes a member and pays a daily fee. Then that member has access to a hotline to report crime or humanitarian crisis. Echelon Security Services or the nonprofit humanitarian group Loving One responds to the call.
You want to try to get inside at some point? Get into a shelter? Huh? You do?
Members then see a daily report showing the work that's being done.
But the thing that we're hearing from residents, the hotline service, for once, now they can call someone, and within 8 minutes, it was the average last month, there will be a person there to deal with that situation. And they take care of it very effectively. They de-escalate situations and do a wonderful job of serving the community to make it more livable and more safe.
The Pearl District is the first neighborhood to implement the program, but the hope is to expand it.
And then we've been talking with the Northwest District and others about how we could expand this as a concept in Portland, because it's going to take a public-private partnership. We can't depend on government to solve all our problems. Community has to be involved. And I think with what we're doing, I think we're showing a model that can work in that public-private partnership model.
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
It's this type of community activism, Mike Thielen says, is what Portland is known for, and what has made us prosper in the past.
I think we'll look back 20 years from now at the summer of 2023 is when the narrative really started to shift.
Can we learn from other cities around the world? Coming up, I'll introduce you to one man who's been traveling the globe for nearly 4 decades, learning from other communities' best practices to see if some of their ideas will work here.
Randy Miller is perhaps Portland's biggest fan. He's been civically engaged in Portland's success for decades.
You know, we were outliers in so many regards during our history. And it really began in the 70s and 80s, and I remember it because I was sort of part of that cadre at that particular point that was working with these different initiatives.
He's come to learn what works and what doesn't for our city. For the past 36 years, Miller has led the annual Best Practices trip. Public and private sector leaders travel to find what makes other cities thrive, and then they bring that insight home to build our local economy.
So years ago, we started making sure that when we select a city, that we want to make sure that they have the different parallels that we do and study how they've done what they've done or what we can possibly avoid because of their mistakes. That's really powerful.
He's learned there's not a specific right way to prosper.
What we've discovered on all these trips is that there's no cookie cutter formula, because what you do to make your community better has to reflect who you really are. And when we see some areas of expertise or even the decline, you can't say, oh, here's what you need to do. You have to really understand the ethos and the culture of that community to make it happen, to make it work.
When it comes to Portland, it's always been about people wanting to be here, the obvious draw of our natural resources, the coast and the mountains. But the city has also invested in critical infrastructure like a condensed downtown, light rail, and commerce with Asia that entices people to move here.
What we did is we created a community that made it attractive for people, not necessarily for anything else, for people. And we drew highly educated, younger people here to help drive a lot of our prosperity because they aligned with all those different elements that we created.
He puts Portland's quick decline into perspective.
Portland is not isolated from most all the elements that we've had here in place that have created these problems. It does have been exacerbated here for a couple of reasons. One is such a departure from where we were. It really stands out as a contrast. But secondly, we're a tolerant community. And initially, not just with the homeless issue, but also with the protests. Initially, the community was very tolerant, and it actually escalated as a result of that.
In your best practices travels, how long does it typically take a community to rebuild or to get to a point of success?
Sometimes never. When we go to challenge cities like Detroit and like to Buffalo and to Cleveland, places that have had generations of challenges, the difference between there and here is we have, as I said before, all the elements still in place. We have that make people want to live here. We have the environmental stewardship. We have the wonderful placemaking. All the things that made us great before we still have. A lot of those cities just don't have much to rely on any longer, and we see them continue to suffer.
We know the problems facing Portland. It's fair to say we're still a city in crisis. Drugs, homelessness, business challenges, Portland's broken bridges, if you will. But as we've shown you, repairs are underway. New major developments are in the works, showing Portland has a plan to evolve. But the Portland of tomorrow will not look like the city we've known in the past. And it's not just up to our elected leaders to create the change all on their own, as we all work towards a Portland that's on a pathway to progress.